Exactly. And let's talk about this, right? You got the seasonal rewards. You finish in the top 10. Are you confident now taking a player like Ben Keys?
You're not. Whereas
Are
before,
you second guessing that decision?
yeah, I don't even think he's on the board at the moment.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special episode of the Footy GameDay Squad show. Me and Callum are here today in the flesh. What's up, bro?
Mate, good to see you
How
in person.
Going? As you guys may or may not know, I'm from actually Sydney. Callum's up here in Brisbane in Queensland. We've gotten together today to do a special episode for all of you guys. We're doing the review of round 22, and what a round it was. There were so many great games. We were together last night watching the Swans and the Pies game. It was pretty bloody good.
It was good. I wasn't allowed to turn on the Port game. Apparently that didn't mean anything, so I had to put up and watch the Swans game. But it was a goodie, so I'm glad we did watch that. And yeah, shout out to Kerm. I know we wanted you here as well, but yeah, he couldn't make it down here. It would have been good to have all the boys together.
Dude, we tried to get the 3 people here. Unfortunately, we can only get 2. Stay tuned for that. One day we'll get us all together. The full gang will be together in the flesh, and we can do something like this. But let's get into it. We're here because of GameDay Squad, Australia's first and only fantasy sports platform utilising blockchain technology. If you're not sure what we're about, we always tell you, go down below. Check it out in the description. We have all our links there. We also have our Discord. Please join that. We'd love to chat with you. We want to see the cards you pull, all of that good stuff. It's free, so why not? Just join. But let's get into it. We're going to do a review of round 22, as we mentioned. How do we start this show?
Studs and duds.
We get into our studs and duds. We want to talk about the good players, the bad players, all of that. Let me start off.
Yeah, give me your first
Third place winner this week, Sean Darcy from the Dockers. Now,
winner? Is that your number one?
Third place.
We're
not starting with number one. We'll
I thought you got me worried there for a second. And that's a good choice. What you were just showing me before, 54 hitouts, was it?
56 hitouts in that game. He had 167 GameDay Squad fantasy points. Now, this is a drum that Kerm's been beating all year.
Yes.
So I would have loved for Kerm to be here to talk about it. But Sean Darcy had a cracker game. It was the WA Derby, at Optus Stadium there. It was lit. David Mundy having his last home game, or at least until the finals. We're not sure what's going to happen there. Unbelievable scenes. But yeah, 167 GameDay Squad fantasy points. That's a bloody good outing, and he's best for the year, mind you. So well done. Third place winner this week for our studs. What about you? Who's going to take out
dud? So I only have 2 for you. I was trying to find a third dud, but as we'll get to a bit later, I had a good week. So I was feeling good. I didn't want to be ripping into people. You're obviously here, so I'm having a good time. But I'm going to give you my second place, and it was a tough one between these two. But the only reason this guy gets second and not first is because he's not actually in my team. So second goes to Lachie Neale, who Friday night had himself a very quiet game. He was tagged out of it. Only 70 GDS points, 6 kicks, 10 handballs, 6 tackles. Just couldn't get into it. The Lions didn't need him to get into it, though. They obviously got the win there against Saints, which puts them in a good spot against Melbourne next week. That'll be a fucking awesome game to finish off the year. But unfortunately, Neale didn't quite deliver. Like I said, wasn't in my team, so I didn't have to feel that one. But yeah, I feel for those who were banking on him this week, and particularly those in AFL Fantasy who might have had him as a captain or someone they were relying for on a grand final. So
yeah, that's not the game you want from one of your star players. That's a player that you think every single week is going to at least get you to triple-digit scoring.
At least, as a minimum.
A minimum. Even more. Like, that's how good they are. That's how high we regard them. But, yeah, it's unfortunate. All right, but let me get into my second place winner for the start of the round, which is something that you want. You don't want Callum's awards for his duds. You want my ones, though, for studs.
They're not that bad.
They're not that bad, but that's just not that's not what you want to be carrying around into your next round. You're one of the worst performers of the week.
We don't do a dud squad of the year, although they'd be fun cards. Imagine multipliers of like 0.5 or something. Yeah, make them terrible.
Oh, man.
Million salary cap or something.
But this guy had a bloody game, and his name is Tom Lynch. And, mate, we were watching bits and pieces of that game throughout the day yesterday. But, mate, 8 goals, 168 GameDay Squad fantasy points. So if I just mention it, only beat Sean Darcy by 1 fantasy point for second place, which was huge in the end. But yeah, Tom Lynch had a game. He single-handedly willed his Richmond Tigers to that win. It was unbelievable.
It was
You
awesome.
watched him play. He was calling for a deep. He's just sitting in the goal square. I'm taking everyone one-on-one, taking huge marks. Had a couple for the game as well. So, yeah, well done to Tom Lynch. Second place winner this week and the second best performance of the round of 22. So,
just want to quickly say on that, one of the favourite parts about yesterday was you were driving and we both had Tom Lynch in our team. And I just kept saying, he scored another one.
Yeah.
And you're driving, you're like, he can't. I'm like, mate, he scored another one. It just kept going. It was awesome.
Yeah, mate, the boys went for late brunch, but I'll tell you what, it was a bloody G up with Tommy Lynch kicking goals every 5 minutes.
It was good. You know who wasn't kicking goals, though?
Tell me.
My dud of the round. And it's the same game as the Lachie Neale one.
Ooh.
Although the reason, like I said, that he gets it over Lachie Neale, despite getting the same 70 GDS points, is A, his team didn't get the win, and B, he was in my fantasy team. So I felt this one.
So that's the main reason was B.
Main reason, yeah. Mate, if this guy had teed off, I might have actually won the competition for the round. But yeah, Steele just didn't get the job done. 70 GDS points, only 5 kicks, 8 handballs, 2 marks. He did try to get himself involved with 7 tackles, which you do like to see. Lachie Neale was the same. When they're not having a good day and finding the footy and getting tagged, they still can get a few tackles.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, 70 is not what you want from Steele or from Neale. But like I said, for those reasons, Steele pips dud of the round for me.
Yeah, 2 Brownlow level players there, both having dud performances in the same game. Quite uncommon. You'd expect one of them at least. Well.
And I just want to call out, we're coming to the end of our season this round, as everyone obviously knows. So we're doing our squad of the year, which we've got some tasty stuff with that, just quietly. Make sure you are following everything below, because if you kind of know what our game's about and you kind of can imagine the sort of things we want to do, squad of the year is something that would be a big part of our game. So there's a little tease for people. But these guys maybe aren't going to be in our squad of the year after those performances. They're slipping out, like someone that I've got coming up on my player radar. It's leaving that midfield spot wide open. There's 5 midfielder spots, so it is very competitive. But yeah, unfortunately, Steele and Neale are going backwards. So, yeah, there's still a lot to play for next week, but making it tough for themselves. They're going to have to come from far back to do it.
100%. And, guys, if you want to hear this information first, you get it on our Discord. You get it on our socials. So, as I harped on before, go follow them in the link below, especially if you love fantasy, because we love fantasy here as well.
Love it.
And we want to interact with you guys. But my start of the round, the best performance of the round of 22, if you played this player, you were sitting here licking your lips. You're loving it. It's Josh Kelly from the GWS Giants. And my goodness, did he have a bloody game. What did he finish with? 170 GameDay Squad fantasy points. So I'll tell you what, this has been the closest top 3 that we've had since doing this segment on the show. Literally 3 fantasy points, 3 fantasy points splitting third to first.
Wow.
Quite insane. We haven't had that yet. So what a great round just from everyone in the league. A lot of people are happy with their fantasy teams, unless you're a Steele or a Neale owner. Maybe you're not so happy. But yeah, he had a game, man. He had 26 kicks, 12 marks, and this one is his 2 most notable stats. He was just dominant, getting a lot of pill and using it extremely well for the Giants in that one. So well done to Josh Kelly. He is our best performer of the round.
Yeah, good on him. Good on him.
Well, we're going to get into another segment that I brought up. And I love this segment because we get to talk about players that we might not necessarily be able to talk about in other segments we have, like our studs and our duds. This is the player radar. Let's talk about players who are on your mind and that you want to take a deep dive into. I'll start it though, because we just referred to one of the players just then. It's Tommy Lynch. Now, earlier in the year, we spoke about Tom Lynch and how he's not a fantasy relevant forward. And we spoke about key forwards and how they sit deep and they just don't get the same numbers as the forwards that come up higher. They play the high half forward role and they help the ball move into the forward 50. But Tom Lynch at the tail end of this season, after having what I think is the worst game of his career, he had 7 GameDay Squad fantasy points in the game in round 17. And if you're looking at that as a fantasy manager, there is no way you can start him the week after, right?
Yeah.
But then for the next 3 weeks continuous, he has scored over triple digits in all 3 of them. He has kicked 4 goals in the first, 4 goals in the second, and then 8 goals on the weekend. So the guy has 12 goals over 3 games, and he is the best forward in the competition right now in terms of fantasy score for 3 rounds. Let's not get carried away. He hasn't been doing this all year, unfortunately. If he had been, then he would have been in my team a lot longer ago.
You know what he does though? He gives me he is one of those players in fantasy that makes me just want to quit playing because he just does these things, and I'll get to him a little bit later where you write him off and then he comes back and does this, and then you'll trust him, and then he'll break your heart again. So yeah, he's one of those emotional ones that we talk about with all fantasy sport. But no, that's a good one.
Tom Lynch has been a game changer for fantasy managers who have had the nerve to start him. He's been so up and down all year. As we mentioned, for some reason, both of us had the itch this week to put Tommy in. And we reaped the benefits of that decision for both of us. What a decision it was. But I'm really excited to see what he can do to the end of the season. Richmond have a must-win game next week in order to secure a top 8 spot. So for me, and just a little hint, if you have a Tom Lynch, he's not slowing down next week. He has everything to play for. I would be putting him in and risking it for the last round because it's do or die. We have our seasonal rewards, which we announced on our social platform, which we're so pumped about. And if you haven't had a look at the card designs and all of that stuff, please go have a look. We've been putting in a lot of work behind the scenes to get this stuff out for you. We're so excited for what it can bring. But yeah, how good. Seasonal rewards coming up. Do you reckon anyone takes the Tom Lynch?
No, not a chance.
Neither.
Not a chance.
But yeah, I wanted to mention that. Do you want to get into your player or should I go again?
Well, I'll jump into the seasonal rewards because I was going to talk about that a bit later. We actually recorded a podcast last week for the preview show, but I don't know, something happened, couldn't get the audio out.
We had a file corrupted, unfortunately. So yeah, Callum was we were having a great show, doing a great thing, and then gone. MP4 file, video, audio, out of here. And we were in the middle of a really, really good conversation about our seasonal rewards. So we were going to drop it early for you guys in the show. But Callum, why don't you take it away? Tell them what you have to say about the rewards.
Yeah, well, it's not so much of a surprise now because it's all over our socials. So sorry, guys, I did try to give you that little early insight. But the reward for actually finishing in the top 10 in any of the competitions, regardless if you're capped or open, you're going to get your own custom special prize card. Now, this card has a 1.4 times multiplier. It's got a 600,000 salary cap hit. I think, 600,000, which means that it's tasty whether you're in the capped competition or the open competition. Now, you might want wondering what player gets to go on the cards.
Yeah, what player does?
The top 10 get to choose what player they want on the card. So if you come first in the open or capped competition, you can pick any current player and say, that player is the person I'm putting it on.
All right, well, then answer me this. What happens if Andrew Brayshaw gets taken before me and I want Andrew Brayshaw?
Well, that's a great question. You can't get any players that have already been taken above you. So, for example, I think you're at the moment. Let's say you're coming 10th. The first 9 people ahead of you get to pick which players they want. You can't pick any of the players that they've picked.
And we're fantasy heads here, and you're pretty much telling me it's like a snake draft. Top 10, drafting our players, and you get to keep them?
Exactly. But ask me what happens if you come 11th.
What does happen if you come 11th?
You get nothing. So make sure, one round to go, make sure you are in our top 10 because these cards, not only are they going to be awesome for next year, I didn't design them, so I can say this, but I think they look amazing. So credit to the guys that were behind that. So I want one of them in my team. I know who the players I'm targeting, but if you're not familiar with that, jump on our socials. It's everywhere. It's the nice looking cards. You can't miss it at the moment. But I'll jump into my player radar. Now, someone that hasn't been on our dud show, because he hasn't been awful, but by his standards, he has been.
Okay.
And he's definitely not a stud. But he's on my radar at the moment because he hasn't been on our radar. And it's Ben Keys. What's happened to him?
Okay, now, before you get into Callum tried to roast me a couple of weeks ago for dropping a Ben Keys. So I cannot wait to hear this insight and this take on what's happened. But you're right. Let's get into it because something's changed. The energy has shifted with Ben Keys recently.
Yeah, you've paid him off to make me look like a fool. But, guys, he was an absolute lock for squad of the year.
Like, lock.
A lock for squad of the year. I don't know what happened. Like, he was one of the 5 spots, and we're like, yep, he's sitting around the 3rd or 4th. He's gone backwards. 4 scores below 100. And I'm going, all right.
Is that in a row?
4 scores below. Sorry, 4 out of the last 5 below 100.
Oh
sorry, there was one, but it was only just in there.
Okay.
But do you know what the crazy part was there? I was looking at him, and you did drop him, but he had a really nice draw coming up. So the last 2 weeks, he went West Coast, North Melbourne. So I'm like, this guy is going to eat.
Yep.
Adelaide won those games, so they should have eaten. He had 45 against West Coast, and he only had 72 against North. He should be getting 150 in both of those games.
He should be.
So I'm looking at Ben Keys, and I don't know what's happened. I still think a player next year that I'd want in my team, but someone you're going to have to think about because he was going to be a player that a lot of people were targeting. He's at an age where you could still hold on to him for a few years, so a great dynasty player. However, I look at this and I go, if the Crows aren't going to be competitive, does he just drop off?
Exactly. And let's talk about this, right? You got the seasonal rewards. You finish in the top 10. Are you confident now taking a player like Ben Keys?
You're not. Whereas
Are
before,
you second guessing that decision?
Yeah, I don't even think he's on the board at the moment. The big draft board. So I won't draw on the board.
10 spots. You don't think he gets one?
No.
And you know what?
I don't think a single player takes
the worst thing is I don't disagree with you completely. Like you raise a valid point. Like you seriously have to consider taking other players.
Yeah. Which is a shame.
Yeah.
Now, he's got one more game against Port Adelaide this week. It's obviously those two teams have nothing to play for except the fact that neither of them want to lose. So hopefully you let me watch it this week.
It is a derby game.
It is a derby game.
So it should be good.
I should be allowed to watch it and not have to watch another Swans game or something over the top of it. But, yeah, should be good. So I want to see now that there's actually a game to play for.
Yeah.
If you can show up and leave a nice taste in people's mouths.
He needs to get rid of this doubt that we have with him right now. Because then two things for me. Firstly, playing more time in the forward line, playing as a forward pocket, like just shying away from the ball. Don't like to see that from your star midfielder. And the second thing is the emergence of Rory Laird. How good he has been in the midfield. But you really feel like they could be a 1-2 punch together. It shouldn't be this case where one flourishes and one drops off. Because they're both extremely good players. Both of them hunt the footy. They should honestly feed off each other, if anything, and play better when they're together.
But the thing is, they're both tackle merchants. Love a good tackle, and Laird has been on fire. So I think he's been less probably around the disposals.
On fire would be an understatement. The guy broke a record this year for the amount of tackles in a game.
He did. So, yeah, maybe he's taken away. You'd think they'd go together, but you can only have a certain amount of tackles in a game. And if they're both tackling it, only one of them are getting it. So
only one's getting it. That's a good point.
But give me your other player radar.
My last player now. We haven't spoken about this player in a long, long time. But I actually put him on the hot seat. And for anyone who doesn't watch our shows regularly, the hot seat is a segment where we nominate players to go on the hot seat essentially for playing bad, and we want to talk about their performance and maybe give some insight into what's going on, if something's changed, whatever. I put him on the hot seat, but the point that I made after putting him on the hot seat is that I felt that Cam Rayner is an X-factor player for the Brisbane Lions, and that towards the tail end of the season, that he would be a difference maker for fantasy teams.
Yeah.
That he was going to find his form. He's coming off an ACL injury. The more he plays, the better he's looking. And I was really confident with that statement, and he's proving me right. If you looked at last game for the Brisbane Lions, he was their saviour.
He played well.
They seriously were letting that game slip away, and 4 goals from Cam Rayner sealed the deal in the end. I think 3 of those goals came in the second half, maybe even the last quarter, if I'm not mistaken. He was on fire, and if you saw the one to finish it off, if you haven't seen the poster, the to the crowd, that takes some effort. That takes some bloody skill. He was really far out. That was a 40-metre snap on a pretty good angle.
And he's shown his class because he's obviously a former number 1 draft pick, but ACL, you can either make or break a player, right? You can either have that year off, they can learn, get the rest of his body right. Upper body takes a while sometimes, or it could really break them, right? You don't want to have an early ACL injury. Normally it's the latter, but
exactly.
He's come back well. And like we're seeing now more and more players coming back from these ACL injuries and having big performance, like big careers. Like Robbie Gray, I know from Port Adelaide, did his ACL early.
100%.
Tex Walker is another one. I was at the game. Awful, did his ACL. Came back, played in the grand final, was really good. So, yeah, it's not the injury it used to be. Still not great, but no, I'm so happy because he's such a talent. And being up here in Brisbane, there's not many things at the Lions that get me excited, but he's one of the few players I do like. So he's a great player to have on your radar and someone that's maybe sneaking on, not to the team cards, but someone that you'll be thinking about. Does he start to go in the midfield a little bit more now he's finding his rhythm?
100%.
Is that something? So
100%.
Very
good points.
He's an off-season player radar player for sure.
And let's get into it. GameDay Squad is a dynasty game. He's 22 years old.
Yeah.
He has a long road ahead of him in the AFL. And if he's showing glimpses of magic and just stardom right now, the future is really bright for a player like Cam Rayner. And once people do start coming out of the Brisbane Lions, retiring, they do have a couple of older heads in there, sort of the glue of the team right now.
Yeah.
People are going to have to step up, and I wouldn't be looking any further than Cam Rayner to get into that midfield because he is the real deal.
Is it too early to start talking about dropping Neil? I'm kidding.
One bad performance in this outfit.
No, like I said, he wasn't in my team, so I'm not ready to swing an axe. That would be silly. What do we got next? Right and wrong.
Got right and wrong. And I'll start it off because this is something we both got right this week. And after, flaming Tommy Lynch all year, we both made the executive decision last minute to change him. And my one was because Mitch Duncan was resting, so I had him in there. I had to take out Mitch Duncan, and I was a little bit upset that I had to put Tom Lynch in.
Yep.
Because, I looked at that round 17 performance of 7 points, but then the two after, and I'm like, what am I going to get? I'm going to get one side or the other. Fortunately for me, it was the better side. But yeah, both of us putting Tom Lynch into our lineups this week, him being the second best fantasy performance, that's definitely something I got right. But did you get something else right, or is that the one thing you got right as well?
No, I had something else for right, but I want to jump into wrong. Now, you don't know what I've got right or wrong here, but for wrong, I've got the same thing, but I've got it wrong. So I remember a few weeks ago, Lynch came back and he was teeing off. And I blatantly, flat out said, Tom Lynch is not a fantasy player you want in your team.
Yeah.
Turns out he can be, as we found out yesterday. And I didn't listen to my own advice, which is best tip for everyone. Don't listen to what I have to say because I'm clearly not listening to it myself. But I ended up playing him, not because I wanted to, but I just had no one else to play.
Okay.
I had no other cards
to play. No depth in the club. And it was just similar to me, sort of forceful.
Very forced.
Yeah. Okay.
To the point I didn't realize I had him until during the game. I forgot that I'd made that decision on Friday night.
Well, that was the decision that maybe you wanted to forget because you were expecting the other side of the coin here, right?
I was sitting there and I'm telling Tom who is on. Tom Lynch is on. He's kicking goal after goal. I'm like, I don't have him. Turns out I did. That definitely perked me up a little bit. But that's my wrong. What I did get right, though,
hit me.
I didn't change anything else in my team. And
from the week
before, outside of the Lynch one. So I said the best result, I had my best result last week. And I went, in GameDay Squad at the moment, there are no restrictions on how many people you can swap. That will be different for next year. It will be restricted. You won't be able to just swap your team over as you can do it at the moment. But there is that temptation when you can make changes to make changes. You can get hot on people and you can go away from your logic. But I was right. I went there and I went, nah, don't want to change my midfield. Don't want to change my back line. Don't want to change my forward line outside of Lynch, which was a forced change. And it worked for me.
Yeah.
It works for me. So as we'll get on into in a moment, you'll see how well I did. I was stoked. But yeah, that's maybe my tip for the last week. Don't make changes if you don't have to. Back the right quality people if you've got them in your team. Because, they can get the job done. They're quality.
Yeah, exactly right. And you set a good example there. Coming off the best week of, your GameDay Squad career so far, let's say, as a fantasy coach, what's the point in changing the team? Clearly, you found some sort of magic formula. There's no need to go in and start changing all these people and looking at averages. If you're comfortable with the lineup you have, stick with it. And that's going to be the situation a lot next year, as you mentioned with the limited subs. You're not going to be able to go in and out and say, there's 5 people busted, get them all out.
Yeah.
You're going to have to be a lot more strategic with the team that you start with next year.
Which I can't
and
wait.
The people who are sitting on the bench. Because if you just fill your bench with a bunch of bronzes and low salary cap players, when you need the sub, guess what you're going to get? A bunch of bronzes and lower salary cap players.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. And it's something we're doing a lot of work at the moment for GameDay Squad, just fixing up what our 2023 rule base is going to be. Again, we said it so many times already. Discord, if you have a suggestion, if you want to know what are we doing here, what are we doing there, hit us up. We're very approachable, hopefully, on Discord. People asking us questions.
But let's get into what I got wrong, though. I took out Robbie Fox, a silver card. I could have played him this week. He had one of his better performances of his career on the weekend.
He was great.
He was really, really good. Solid player. Finding a lot of the ball just all throughout the game. Like, he's not a player that has stretches where he just, gets 10 touches and goes missing for the rest of the game. Just constantly involved. Every quarter, he seemed to do something really well for the Sydney Swans, but not for my team. Had him on the bench, so none of his fantasy score was coming out, and I could have used him. I had a pretty average week in the back line. We did well overall, the Zeus Cannons. I'm not going to lie, because you're going to hear it in a second.
We'll get into it.
Yeah, let's get into it then. The Zeus Cannons, mate. The mighty, mighty Zeus Cannons finished 3rd this week for the round. Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good. But I'll tell you what, this capped competition, I want to give credit to everyone who is competing in the capped competition right now. It is hot.
Yeah.
It is really hot. The difference between me and 7th is like not even 100 fantasy points.
Which is insane heading into the last round.
Thank you, mate, because I probably could have been sitting at 9th if I didn't play you this week.
What's Steph Curry do? You saw it firsthand?
Yeah. Oh, come on, mate. He's doing me dirty. See this here, boys. It'll be filled in, and girls.
The banner that never got hung.
It's all about banner 18. We'll get there one day. But yeah, he helped me finish 3rd this week with 1,961 fantasy points for the mighty, mighty Zeus Cannons. But, one thing I probably got wrong as well is Zach Merritt. I spoke to you yesterday about him watching the Essendon game. I don't like what I see.
Yeah, don't upset yourself. We're finishing on a good note here.
Yeah, we will finish on a good note. But you, at the same time,
had my best result.
You're coming off your best fantasy week, but getting to about this fantasy week because I'm excited about this one.
I thought, last week was good. This week was better. I finished 4th, PB. I was absolutely stoked. Missed out on 3rd by only 15 points.
15 is a bloody stitch up as well.
Yeah, I know.
That's very close.
And I know one of the guys who came 3rd, so I was so close to getting him. Cam, you are very, very lucky. I was chasing you down. But importantly for me, it keeps me 9th overall. So I was at risk there of dropping out of the top 10. And like we said, do not miss out of the top 10 because 11th gets...
Nothing.
10th gets you something. 9th gets you nothing. Sorry, something. Make sure you're on that top 10, which I'm at the moment. I really think I've got a chance now of moving up to 8th. Mate, I'd be stoked with a 9th pick.
Yeah.
Of someone. Being able to pick any player I want, I could put, my mind's already racing about who I can put on there. But being able to move up one further means that there's just that little bit chance. There's a little bit more of a chance that the player I want is on the board there.
Absolutely.
Which what makes you so interesting and your competition. Because at pick 3, you could be picking a Brayshaw, a Smith, a Dacos, someone that falls there. At pick 8, there is no chance those guys are on the board. So it is all to play for. Make sure you're doing everything you can to get there. If you're just outside the top 10, make sure you're on there as well. And we're a bit of a sneak peek. We are having a look into seeing potentially what we can do for the final series. So nothing's locked in at the moment, but just keep an eye on our Discord and our socials because this might not be the final round of the season. This one coming up, it might be, but we still have a few other plans for some things coming when the season does finish, regardless if we do get this competition up.
We're trying to offer something that no other fantasy platform can offer. We're trying to spice it up a little bit. And, who wants the fantasy season to end? We want to keep it going as long as we can, especially while games are on. So
and especially when we're having weeks like this, fantasy can go on forever. When we're having weeks where I'm finishing 16th and pulling my hair out, it can end and I can delete the app.
16th isn't that bad.
Yeah.
It's not terrible.
Yeah.
You take 16th and you're still in the race in the hunt for the top 10 finish. But guys, we've got a really important preview show coming up because you need to get it this week right, especially if you're fighting for a spot right now in that top 10. Callum is stressed how important it is to finish within that range because 11th you get nothing. And thanks for playing. So, you really, really got to make some good decisions this week.
Well, I got one thing that can make people better for next week.
Go.
Free packs. In our preview show. Make sure you're sending them to our Discord. Put in a submission, even if it's your weekly free packs, which everyone would have got today. Send them in on Discord because you could win an extra 9 players. That could be the difference between you making top 10 and not making top 10. So you'd almost be silly not to give yourself that best chance. So make sure you are doing that.
Yeah, well said. And we pick it every week. And, again, that's free. If you just send your bronze starter packs, mate.
Even if you get someone rubbish. We want to see rubbish players because we'll feel sorry for you and we'll give you pack of the week. When Absolutely. I see someone pull a Ned McTanty or whatever his name is, the guy that you've been playing. That one. If you pull him, I feel for you. My vote will go for you. So
I feel like that's a player that's sneakily gone under the radar. He's been playing nearly every week for me, and I just refuse to mention his name because I'm not happy about it.
Yeah.
But he's there every week, and we're still doing not bad this Zeus Cannon. So I'll tell you what.
You're here not because we want you, but just because we need you.
Because we need. But guys, that's going to wrap us up for another episode of the Footy Game Day Squad show. This was a special edition episode. It has been a blast, mate. I wish we could do this every single week. Unfortunately, we live in other states. We can't, but maybe we'll get one more episode in this week.
We'll see. We will see.
Stay tuned. But thanks for checking us in with Game Day Squad. Remember to stay Game Day ready. And is there anything that you want to leave the listeners with or viewers with today?
No, guys, top 10. That's where you want to be. I can't stress it enough because those cards are...
Yeah, we've said enough, legends. We'll catch you in the next one.